A shocking crime you won't believe, and the truth is even darker than you think. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing stories. Clapperboard, let's dive in. It was a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Willow Creek when Emily Carter, a beloved high school teacher, vanished without a trace. The only clue left behind was her car, abandoned on the side of a deserted road. The driver's door wide open, and her purse still on the passenger seat. The town was in shock, and the mystery of what happened to Emily would soon unravel into a chilling tale of betrayal, secrets, and a crime that would haunt the community for years to come. Willow Creek was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone. Nestled in a valley surrounded by dense forests, it was a place where people felt safe. Emily Carter was a fixture in the community, a dedicated teacher, a loving mother, and a loyal friend. She had lived in Willow Creek her entire life, and her sudden disappearance was unthinkable. Emily was 34 years old, married to her high school sweetheart, Mark Carter, and they had 2 young children. She was known for her kindness and her passion for teaching. Her students adored her, and her colleagues respected her. But beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life, there were whispers of trouble in her marriage. Some said Mark had been distant lately, and there were rumors of financial struggles. On the morning of October 12th, Emily left for work as usual. She waved goodbye to her children, kissed Mark on the cheek, and drove off. But she never made it to school. Her car was found later that day, abandoned on a remote stretch of road. There were no signs of a struggle, no tire marks, nothing to indicate what had happened. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The Willow Creek Police Department launched an immediate search. Officers combed the area around the abandoned car, but found nothing. The community rallied together, organizing search parties and distributing flyers. But as days turned into weeks, hope began to fade. The case grew cold, and the town was left with more questions and answers. A month after Emily's disappearance, a hiker stumbled upon a piece of jewelry in the woods near where a car was found. It was a silver bracelet, engraved with the initials EC. The discovery reignited the investigation, and the police focused their efforts on the surrounding forest. But despite extensive searches, no other clues were found. As the investigation deepened, attention turned to those closest to Emily. Her husband, Mark. The number Emily had called before her disappearance led the police to a man named Daniel Harris, a former colleague of hers. Daniel had worked at the same school as Emily, but had left under mysterious circumstances. When questioned, Daniel claimed he hadn't spoken to Emily in months, but the phone records told a different story. The police dug deeper, uncovering a web of lies and secrets that would shock the community. Daniel Harris was a charismatic and well-liked teacher, but he had a dark side. He had been accused of inappropriate behavior with students in the past, but the accusations were never proven. Emily had been one of the few who stood up to him, and it was rumored that they had a falling out. The police began to suspect that Daniel had a motive for wanting Emily out of the way. As the investigation continued, it was revealed that Emily and Daniel had been having an affair. Mark Carter was devastated when he found out, but he insisted that he had no idea about the affair until after Emily's disappearance. The police now had 2 suspects with motives: Mark, who may have killed his wife out of jealousy, and Daniel, who may have wanted to silence her. The police decided to put pressure on Daniel, hoping he would crack. They brought him in for questioning and presented him with the evidence they had gathered. At first, Daniel denied everything, but as the hours passed, he began to unravel. Finally, he broke down and confessed to meeting Emily on the day she disappeared. He claimed they had argued, but he insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. With Daniel's confession, the police focused their efforts on finding physical evidence that could link him to the crime. They searched his home, his car, and his classroom, but found nothing. The case was at a standstill once again, and the police were running out of leads. Just when it seemed like the case would go cold again, a surprising twist emerged. A local woman came forward with a shocking revelation. She had seen Emily on the day she disappeared, but not with Daniel. She claimed to have seen Emily with another man, someone the police had not yet considered. The description matched a local handyman named Tom Reynolds, who had done work at Emily's house. Tom Reynolds was a quiet, unassuming man who had lived in Willow Creek for years. He was known for his handyman skills and was often hired by locals for odd jobs. But as the police dug into his background, they discovered that Tom had a criminal record. He had been arrested for assault in another state, and there were rumors that he had a temper. The police brought him in for questioning, but Tom denied any involvement in Emily's disappearance. Tom claimed he had been working at a job site on the day Emily disappeared, and he had witnesses to back up his alibi. The police checked his story, and it seemed to hold up, but something about Tom's demeanor made them suspicious. They decided to keep an eye on him, hoping he would slip up. A few weeks later, a second clue was discovered. A local farmer found a piece of clothing in his field. Not far from where Emily's car had been abandoned, it was a scarf, and it matched one that Emily had been wearing on the day she disappeared. The police searched the area but found nothing else. The scarf was sent to the lab for analysis, and the results would prove to be crucial. The lab results came back, and the scarf had traces of blood on it. The DNA matched Emily's, but there was also another DNA profile, one that didn't match Mark, Daniel, or Tom. The police were baffled. Who else could be involved in Emily's disappearance? The case was about to take another unexpected turn. The DNA found on the scarf led the police to a new suspect, a man named Jason Miller, a former student of Emily's. Jason had been in trouble with the law before, and he had a history of violent behavior. The police brought him in for questioning, and Jason quickly became their prime suspect. Jason Miller was a troubled young man who had been in and out of juvenile detention centers for most of his life. He had been one of Emily's students, and she had tried to help him, but he had dropped out of school and disappeared from the community. The police discovered that Jason had been back in Willow Creek around the time of Emily's disappearance, and they began to piece together a timeline of his movements. Under intense questioning, Jason finally broke down and confessed to killing Emily. He claimed that he had run into her on the day she disappeared, and that they had argued. He said that in a fit of rage, he had strangled her and then dumped her body in the river. The police were horrified, but they had their confession. They charged Jason with murder and began the process of building a case against him. With Jason's confession, the police focused their efforts on finding Emily's body. They searched the river and the surrounding area, but despite their best efforts, they found nothing. The lack of a body made the case more difficult to prosecute, but the police were confident that they had enough evidence to convict Jason. The trial of Jason Miller was a media sensation. The small town of Willow Creek was thrust into the national spotlight, and the community was divided. Some believed that Jason was guilty and deserved to be punished, while others thought that he had been coerced into confessing, and that the real killer was still out there. The trial lasted for weeks, and the evidence was presented in excruciating detail. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Jason Miller was found guilty of the murder of Emily Carter. The courtroom erupted in chaos as Jason was led away in handcuffs. The community was relieved that justice had been served, but there was still a sense of unease. Without a body, some people couldn't shake the feeling that the case wasn't truly closed. In the months following the trial, the town of Willow Creek tried to return to normal, but the shadow of Emily's disappearance lingered. Mark Carter struggled to raise his children alone, and the community was left to grapple with the knowledge that one of their own had committed such a heinous crime. The case had torn the town apart, and it would take years for the wounds to heal. Despite the verdict, there were still doubts about Jason's guilt. Some people believed that he had been framed, and that the real killer was still out there. The police continued to investigate, but without any new leads, the case remained officially closed. The mystery of what really happened to Emily Carter would haunt the town for years to come. Emily Carter's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who knew her. Her students remembered her as a kind and dedicated teacher, and her children grew up hearing stories about their mother's love and strength. The town of Willow Creek erected a memorial in her honor, and every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, the community came together to remember her. Years later, the case of Emily Carter's disappearance remained one of the most baffling in the history of Willow Creek. Despite the conviction of Jason Miller, there were still unanswered questions. What had really happened to Emily? Was Jason truly guilty, or was there someone else involved? The truth may never be known, but the story of Emily Carter will continue to be told, a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most peaceful communities. 10 years after Emily Carter's disappearance, a shocking discovery was made. A construction crew working on a new development in Willow Creek unearthed human remains. The bones were badly decomposed, but forensic experts were able to identify them as belonging to Emily Carter. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, and the case was reopened with the discovery of Emily's body. The police launched a new investigation. They re-examined the evidence from the original case, and new forensic techniques were used to analyze the remains. The police were determined to finally uncover the truth about what had happened to Emily. As the investigation progressed, a new suspect emerged, Mark Carter, Emily's husband. The police had always had their doubts about Mark, but without a body, they had been unable to build a case against him. Now, with Emily's remains found, they began to piece together a timeline of Mark's movements on the day she disappeared. Mark had always claimed that he had been at work on the day Emily disappeared, but the police discovered that his alibi was not as solid as he had claimed. Witnesses came forward to say that they had seen Mark leaving work early that day, and his cell phone records showed that he had been in the area where Emily's body was found. The police also uncovered new evidence that suggested Mark had a motive for killing Emily. They discovered that he had been having financial troubles and that he had taken out a large life insurance policy on Emily just months before her disappearance. The police began to suspect that Mark had killed his wife for the insurance money. With the new evidence, the police arrested Mark Carter and charged him with the murder of his wife. The community was stunned. Mark had always been seen as a grieving husband, but now he was the prime suspect in a murder case. The trial was set to begin, and the town of Willow Creek was once again thrust into the spotlight. The trial of Mark Carter was even more sensational than the trial of Jason Miller. The prosecution presented a compelling case, detailing Mark's financial troubles, his shaky alibi, and the life insurance policy. The defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that there was no direct proof that Mark had killed his wife. The trial lasted for weeks, and the jury was left to decide Mark's fate. After days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Mark Carter was found guilty of the murder of Emily Carter. The courtroom was silent as the judge handed down the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mark maintained his innocence, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. The conviction of Mark Carter brought a sense of closure to the community, but also left many questions unanswered. What had really happened to Emily? Had Mark acted alone, or was there someone else involved? The case had torn the town apart, and the scars would take years to heal. Emily Carter's legacy lived on, but now it was tinged with sadness and betrayal. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same, and the story of Emily's disappearance would be told for generations to come. It was a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most peaceful communities, and a reminder that the truth is often more complicated than it seems. Years after Mark Carter's conviction, a letter was discovered in the attic of Emily's childhood home. It was addressed to her best friend, Sarah, and it contained a shocking revelation. Emily had written about her fears that Mark was planning to kill her. She had discovered that he was having an affair and that he had taken out a life insurance policy on her. She had planned to leave him, but she never got the chance. The letter prompted a new investigation into Mark Carter's case. The police re-examined the evidence and discovered that there were inconsistencies in the original investigation. They also found new witnesses who came forward with information that had not been considered at the time. The case was reopened, and the police were determined to uncover the truth. The police discovered that Mark had indeed been having an affair, and that his mistress had been pregnant at the time of Emily's disappearance. The mistress had since moved away, but the police tracked her down and questioned her. She revealed that Mark had been planning to leave Emily and start a new life with her, but he had needed the insurance money to do so. The police also discovered new forensic evidence that linked Mark to the crime. They found traces of Emily's blood in the trunk of his car, and they discovered that he had purchased a shovel and other tools just days before her disappearance. The evidence was damning, and it seemed that Mark's guilt was undeniable. Faced with the new evidence, Mark finally confessed to killing Emily. He admitted that he had strangled her in a fit of rage after she confronted him about the affair. He had then buried her body in the woods, hoping that she would never be found. The confession brought a sense of closure to the case, but also left the community in shock. Mark Carter's confession brought an end to the mystery of Emily's disappearance, But it also left the community grappling with the knowledge that one of their own had committed such a heinous crime. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same, and the story of Emily's murder will be told for generations to come. Emily Carter's legacy lived on, but now it was tinged with sadness and betrayal. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same, and the story of Emily's disappearance will be told for generations to come. It was a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most peaceful communities, and a reminder that the truth is often more complicated than it seems. Just when it seemed that the case was finally closed, a final twist emerged. A local journalist who had been following the case for years discovered that Mark Carter had not acted alone. He had been helped by his mistress, who had provided him with an alibi and had helped him cover up the crime. The mistress was arrested and charged with being an accessory to murder, and the case was once again thrust into the spotlight. The mistress's trial was swift, and she was found guilty of being an accessory to murder. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison, and the case was finally closed. The community was left to grapple with the knowledge that two of their own had been involved in such a heinous crime, and the story of Emily's murder will be told for generations to come. The case of Emily Carter's murder was finally closed, but the scars it left on the community would never fully heal. The town of Willow Creek would never be the same, and the story of Emily's disappearance will be told for generations to come. It was a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most peaceful communities, and a reminder that the truth is often more complicated than it seems. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more crazy crime stories, make sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. What crime shocked you the most? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. More insane stories are coming your way. Follow us for more on your social media handles, if any. And check out our next video here. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.